the Peace Academy, Rhineland-Palatinate, and the University of Kaiserslautern-Landau, and the German Association for Peace and Conflict Researchers, AFK. My name is Jan-Peter Schilling. I'm the scientific director of the Peace Academy and a board member at the AFK. And before I give you a brief overview of the webinar, I want to share a few housekeeping rules. I don't think they will be a big issue in this group, but I point them out anyway. I can see that most of you have shared their name anyway. That's great. If you have not done so, please change your Zoom name either to your first name or last name. We are fine with either. We will have the presentations all in a row, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the global chat at any point in time, because we will be picking up the questions later on. So you don't have to wait for your questions. You might forget them. You can just post them in the chat at any time. The webinar is recorded, as you just been informed, but we will only record it up until we are done with the presentations and the brief discussion among the panelists. And once we open the floor towards the end, then we will stop the recording, so everybody is free to speak. Well, everybody's free to speak anyway, but you're not recorded then either. We will talk about forest conservation and its pathways possible to environmental peace building. And if you're an expert on environmental peace building, you're at the right place. If you don't know what environmental peace building is, then you're even more at the right place, because we will tell you all about it. And the first person to tell you all about it will be Karl Bruch. He is the executive director of NPAX, and I'll hand over to you, Karl.
Thank you, Jan-Peter. It's a wonderful event that we have pulled together. I'm Karl Bruch. I am the executive director of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, and this is part of what we call the Path to Ottawa. The association is a network of professionals, students, researchers, policymakers, and practitioners, almost 500 people in about 87 countries. And it brings people together to share experiences and learning. It does so often around particular areas. We have different interest groups, including the Forest Interest Group, which is organizing this event. We also have a biennial conference, and the 4th International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding will be held in Ottawa, Canada, June 16 through 19. And so we have a series of events leading up to the conference to help stir the pot on issues to discuss. It also helps to ensure that additional voices, people who can't necessarily join us in Ottawa, are able to have their voices heard. And so in the chat, you'll see both more information on the association and on the Path to Ottawa and on the conference. I did want to also acknowledge the leadership of Bernd Unger and Tom Cavanaugh in managing and leading and inspiring the Forest Interest Group. This is particular interest to me, as I have worked on and off in Liberia and in other countries with forests that have been affected by conflict. So I'm very interested in hearing the wide range of perspectives on forests, conflict, and peace. And with that, turn it back to Jan-Peter.
Thank you very much, Karl. It is my pleasure then to introduce our first speaker. So as you can see on the flyer, we will have 4 presentations. We changed the order a little bit, but Rowan will get us started. Rowan is a senior technical specialist in governance and livelihood at an international organization called Fauna and Flora. Before she was, or that's actually how I met her, she was a Alexander von Humboldt Climate Protection Fellow at the university in Hamburg, and that's how we started working together on these issues of this webinar now. Rowan works on forest conservation, conflict, peace building, and community livelihoods, and she will share her thoughts now. So, Rowan, over to you.
Thank you, Jan-Peter, for the introduction, and I welcome everybody to this meeting. As Jan-Peter said, I'm Rowan Alusiola. So today I'm going to present a published study that we worked on, but this was co-authored by Jan-Peter Schilling, Professor Jan-Peter Schilling, who is here as the moderator, and Dr. Rebecca Froese and Paul Klar. And the title for this paper is Identifying Peace Pathways, How Can Forest Conservation Contribute to Environmental Peace Building? Oh, it's not working. Sorry, something is happening with the screen. It froze. But I will take you through the background. My screen has frozen. Sorry, I will stop sharing the screen, but I will share again. So I will take you through the background of the study. Sorry, let's try again. Yeah.
Rowan, can you try to use the arrows or maybe click on the presentation? I think that's sometimes an issue with PowerPoint. When you use the cursor and click on the presentation, or use the arrows.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because Zoom has a way that every time they change something, so they make it difficult every time. Even though if you use Zoom every day, they find something how to make it difficult.
I will try and share again. Hopefully it works. Let's see. Yeah. So it's not on presentation mode, but I hope it can work. You'll excuse me, please let me just use this without presentation mode so that I can be able to go through. So I will take you through the background and research question, and then the method, concept, and framework, and then the results and conclusion of our study. So as we all know, forest conservation has gained increasing importance over the last decade. But again, as it gains a lot of importance, also a growing body of literature shows that forest conservation programs, for example, the REDD+, have aggravated or created conflict. And this has created conflict because communities have been restricted from access of forest and forest resources. And so at this point, we ask ourselves, can forests also contribute to peace building? And so we found this as a research gap, and we decided to have a study. And our research question was, how can forest conservation measures contribute to peace building? Our study was a review of scientific literature. And initially we had thought we will focus only on REDD+, because there was a lot of focus on REDD+ and conflict. But when we looked through the research at that point, we realized that we didn't have enough detailed information or data on REDD+ and peace building. So we expanded our research to forest conservation and peace building and cooperation. So from our review of scientific literature, we got 273 papers. And from 273 scientific papers, we selected 7 case studies. So in this presentation, I'll be talking about case studies, but these case studies were from Nepal, Thailand, Indonesia, Ghana, and Mexico. So so when we collected these, we decided to use a conceptual framework that we adopted from Dresser et al. 2016. But now in our analysis, we looked at the initial conditions in these case studies, the peace mechanisms, and the outcomes. And then the initial conditions, we looked at biophysical aspects, socio-political context. Then we looked at the peace building building approaches, which approaches did they use, or which processes what did the case studies of the communities or the actors use in cooperation, and also development of relationships across scales. And then we looked at the outcome. What was the outcome after all these processes? Were they peaceful relations, or did they increase cooperation? So from our results in the initial conditions, from all our case studies, the communities used the forest as the source of their livelihood. And this was very interesting because we all understand that the local communities use the forest for their livelihood. And also, there was conflict that was experienced at all the case studies that we looked at. And this conflict were at various levels, either within the community or with the community with other neighboring communities, or at the district level or national level or regional levels. And this included also multiple parties in the conflicts. Across these studies also, there were diverse set of conflict drivers that we identified. For example, there were restriction of full access of the communities to the forest resources. Also, there was unclear benefit sharing mechanism. In other case studies, we had weak forest fire control and also vague land tenure systems. In peace mechanisms, we tried to look at who are the initiators of the peace mechanisms and what was their motivation. So when we assessed all the case studies, the communities and their leaders or outsiders, we are putting these in brackets, who are the conveners, for example, the government, timber operators or research teams, were the one who initiated these processes. And the motivation in 6 case studies was for peace building. But there was one case study that was very interesting from Thailand, where the government motivation was not peace building. Their motivation was to come up with development programs so that they can control the local community. But the local community took this as an opportunity for them to initiate the peace building mechanism. And then also we looked at how did they cooperate and how did they build trust among themselves. And so we realized that there was several forms in which they build trust and cooperated. We had the formal ones and informal ones. So for the formal ones, which included the research team and the local community, and the local community were in form of community forest user groups, there were trainings which were utilized, there were discussions, and also analysis of conflict and the root causes of the conflict. But in other case studies, we had cultural and religious symbols being used. For example, in Thailand, this was very commonly used. We had ceremonies, for example, Buddhist ceremonies, where they were doing ordination of trees so that they can protect the forest from anybody coming to the forest. Or even they had cultural ceremonies where they were calling or inviting spirits so that they can protect the forest. Also, we had traditional ceremonies being performed during these cooperative meetings. And this happened in Ghana. In Ghana, it was very interesting because they used animal sacrifices, and these animal sacrifices were used to seal any negotiations. And also there were creation of rules and regulations. So it was very interesting to see how the different formal and informal were utilized to ensure that there was cooperation and building dynamics. And also, in all the case studies, the spaces for dialogue was provided, and this was provided through negotiations or through mediations or focus group discussions. We identified approaches to peace building, but these approaches were not utilized as a single one. And so we just summarized them, but different case studies utilized a set of different approaches to peace building. For example, there was creation of spaces for dialogue between the community and the external actors. And also there was strengthening of social capital. And this happened in Ghana, case study from Ghana, where the youth were very influential in the community, so they were utilized by the timber operators so that they can be able to initiate the businesses within the community. Then also adoption of traditional customs and norms, which I've already talked about, promotion of adaptive learning and deliberation, involving the community in participatory action and research, where the community came together to just reflect what is the causes of the conflict and how do they implement them. Then they came up with the implementation measures and reflected back on the implementation measures, if they're working or they were not working. Also, we had case studies where we had collective choice arrangement systems, also knowledge sharing and the utilization of mutual conveners. We also looked at the relationship between stakeholders because we wanted to understand how was the interrelationship in the community during these peace building processes. So we had intra-group relationships where we had different community groups come together. We had a network, for example, in Thailand that was formed, and this network was very instrumental in talking, in representing the community to the government and arguing on what they need as a community. But again, as we looked through the intra-group relations, there were also other relations that were created, especially from the forest user group, which caused new conflicts from the existing ones. And they caused new conflicts because a group of people, for example, the women, they were now more knowledgeable about their rights and their responsibilities to conservation, and they were asking for more involvement. But as they created more conflict, now they came up with new resolutions. And also we had intergroup relations because the community also interrelated with the NGOs or government or timber operators. Also, we looked at how the communities interacted with the government. And we realized that in all the case studies, the communities at least interacted with the government, either the local level, district level, or national levels. What were the outcomes from these peace building mechanisms? So we had the implemented measures, which led, of course, to more peaceful relationships. The local communities also had an opportunity to participate in forest conservation, negotiate with the government on their wishes, and also network with the external stakeholders. The quality also of the services that was provided by the government was improved, and there was a functional working relationship established between the local communities and the government. In conclusion, what are we saying? We're saying that forest conservation programs can bring diverse groups together to rethink the existing perceptions on each other. How do these existing stakeholders perceive each other? And so when they come together, it brings them to rethink on their perceptions to each other. Also, it's promising to strengthen social capital within the communities, and this also increases the bond between the communities. We are saying also government should be open to traditional customs and norms and be willing to integrate them into formal legal structures. Adaptive learning and also participatory research action also came in handy. And here is just a pause for those in research and ask questions, how legitimate research playing in peace building processes. And then the government and other stakeholders also should learn and respect local communities, cultures, values, and interests and perspectives on forest conservation. Local networks are key to conflict resolution, and joint development, adoption, utilization, and monitoring or blend between formal and traditional methods and local institutions is central to conflict resolution. Thank you. And on the sources here, we have the paper that I've just presented, but I will put it in the chat in case you want to read it more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rowan. That was a very nice overview of several studies, or like a meta study that we did there. The way we want to do it for those who came a bit later is that if you have questions, please put them in the chat as they come to your mind, so you won't forget them. We will pick them up later. The idea is that we will have all presentations in a row, and then we'll have an overarching discussion about all four presentations and discuss your questions as well. And with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Alusiola Taberner. She is a PhD researcher at King's College London at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. And in her PhD, she studies the perceptions of environmental security in the Brazilian Amazon. And I think it's very nice that we have switching to a case study now from the Brazilian Amazon. So Alicia, over to you.
Yes. Hello. Hi, everyone. Okay, so my name is Alusiola Taberner, as Jan-Peter mentioned, and I am a PhD student examining the understandings of environmental security and at the University of São Paulo and King's College London. So my research explores how different actors define environmental security, what they see as threats, and what peace in the Amazon means from their perspectives. So my broader PhD examines how multiple stakeholders, government actors, indigenous peoples, the federal police, armed forces, NGOs, and Amazon specialists understand environmental security in the Brazilian Amazon. However, for today's presentation, I focus on findings from government representatives and indigenous people. So, importantly, insecurity in the Amazon is experienced both as direct physical violence, so threats, killings, threats of death threats, property destruction, and structural violence as well, embedded in political, economic, and legal systems. So following Galtung, peace in the Amazon must be understood in both a negative sense, so the absence of direct violence, and a positive sense, the absence of structural violence and the presence of justice. So environmental peace building is relevant here because it seeks not only to reduce resource-related violence, but to transform governance systems and relationships around the environment. So the interviews presented today draw from fieldwork conducted in 4 states, I believe, Amapá, Roraima, Amazonas, Acre, Rondônia, so no 5, and then including interviews with some government officials in Brasilia. Actors referenced in this presentation include the Indigenous Council of Roraima, which is a major indigenous organization in Brazil's northernmost state, Corepaco communities who live along the Isana River in the upper Rio Negro region across Brazil, Colombia, and Venezuela. Cito Acare, which is a regional indigenous women's organization headquartered in Rio Branco and Acre, advocating for women's rights and food security, as well as representatives from the indigenous territory of Uru-Eowawau, which is one of the largest indigenous territories, includes uncontacted groups as well. And then from the government representative side, we have Isimbio, which is Brazil's federal agency managing conservation units, the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change, so responsible for deforestation and fire control policies, including the Zero Deforestation Pledge that Brazil has by 2030. OTCA, which is the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, which is a multilateral body uniting Amazonian countries, with all countries signatories of this, except for the French territory of French Guiana, and the State Secretariat of Agriculture based in Acre. So, what does conflict in the Brazilian Amazon look like from the interviews? So participants identified 5 major drivers of insecurity and conflict in the Amazon. Firstly, they mentioned illegal mining, specifically garimpo, which is illegal gold mining. And gold mining, the mercury contaminates rivers with mercury, which seriously harms the environment and human health. Also, there's organized crime. So proximity to Peru and Bolivia makes the Amazon a strategic drug trafficking corridor. Some criminal organizations such as São Paulo's Primeiro Comando da Capital and Rio de Janeiro's Comando Vermelho are increasingly active in the region, making it increasingly more volatile and violent. And environmental crimes and drug trafficking are becoming increasingly intertwined as well. We have drug trafficking mixed with the illegal markets of gold, timber, and fish as well. Then we have, which creates a hybrid economy. Then we also have deforestation and land grabbing, which is driven by cattle ranching, soy monocultures, illegal logging, and the invasion also of indigenous territories. We have political and legislative pressures. So indigenous participants especially frequently mentioned a law linked to Marco Temporal, which is a rule that says that indigenous peoples can only claim land they occupied on October the 5th, 1988, which is the date of Brazil's constitution. And this disregards prior forced displacement from lands, of course, and traditional nomadic land use as well, and can exclude many indigenous peoples from reclaiming territories. Also, the infrastructure projects were also brought up by participants, and this includes, for example, the paving of the BR 319 highway, which is from Porto Velho up to Manaus, hydroelectric dams, the building of the Bolivia-Brazil bridge, and oil exploration projects as well. And participants view these as opening new deforestation frontiers, which bring with it, according to participants, further environmental insecurity in the region. There were differences in emphasis between indigenous peoples and the state government. Indigenous peoples identified political and economic decisions as root drivers of insecurity, and often perceived the state itself as a source of insecurity. And this doesn't matter whether the administration was more right-leaning or more left-leaning in both cases. The state was viewed as the source of insecurity. Obviously, government actors did not express this, and they framed insecurity as a governance and enforcement challenge, and they emphasized the absence of state presence as a problem. And I think this was a key finding so far. So this difference is critical for environmental peace building, for example, because is peace built through more state presence or different forms of governance? And it depends very much on the type of state as well. So what does peace look like in the Brazilian Amazon? So participants identified 7 interconnected dimensions of environmental peace. Human well-being for Amazonian communities, sustainable resource use, recognition and enforcement of rights, ecosystem conservation for present and future generations, balance between development and protection, political and institutional support, and reduce geopolitical and economic pressures. So environmental peace building can contribute here by creating cooperative governance structures, strengthening land tenure security, supporting community-based monitoring, and aligning conservation with livelihoods, and thus framing the forest not as a commodity frontier, so to say, but as a shared ecological foundation for peace. So is peace attainable in the Brazilian Amazon? So participants generally agreed that, firstly, threats are severe and are accelerating. Secondly, that political and economic systems are not responding fast enough. Thirdly, that indigenous peoples are central to realistic solutions. And fourth, that peace requires cooperation across the local, national, and global levels. And environmental peace building can operate across these scales, so linking community governance, national policy, and global environmental responsibility. But many participants believe that the Amazon is approaching or has indeed reached in certain parts a point of no return. Even zero deforestation alone would not secure peace due to aforementioned threats such as organized crime, legislative rollbacks, global commodity demand, climate change. However, at the same time, there is strong hope rooted in indigenous territorial governance, community councils, territorial management plans, environmental monitoring. And it's key to note that indigenous territories remain among the most preserved areas in the Amazon today. So, conditions for peace through the lens of environmental peace building. So the interviews suggest 3 core conditions for peace, and environmental peace building can contribute to each of them. So according to the interviews, peace requires strengthening indigenous and community authority over land and resources. And environmental peace building can contribute by supporting co-management and territorial governance, investing in community-based monitoring, recognizing indigenous knowledge systems. Secondly, peace requires enforcement against illegal activities in the Amazon, which is relatively weak at the moment, enforcement, protection of environmental defenders, and stable institutional support. This can be supported via transparent environmental governance, cross-agency cooperation, trust building between state and communities. And lastly, insecurity in the Amazon is shaped by global structural drivers such as global commodity markets, mineral demand, climate change, international political pressures. So peacebuilding needs to extend beyond the Amazon, right, to promoting sustainable supply chains, to encouraging climate responsibility, supporting multilateral cooperation, like OTCA, which most, even the government interviewees were saying is slightly dormant at the moment. So this could be strengthened, for example. On closing thoughts, so there is a clear divide, absolutely, in visions of development that came from the interviews. Indigenous peoples argued that development should be living in harmony with nature and not about accumulating things. They talked about life being at one with forests, rivers, and cultural traditions, and they stressed that economic projects such as mining, monoculture, and large infrastructure destroys ecosystems and threatens their livelihoods. There is a clear difference in trust towards the state, as mentioned. Congress is particularly feared, and extractive projects create insecurity and violence in the negative and positive sense. And Congress, but despite these tensions, there is a shared recognition of the importance of Indigenous territories and a shared concern about external pressures. So in short, the interviewees concluded that the Amazon must be protected from uncontrolled exploitation, and that peace in the Amazon is not simply the absence of violence, but is the presence of just and sustainable and inclusive environmental governance. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. That was very interesting. I have a lot of questions, but I hold my horses because we said we will keep that to the end. And with that, I have the pleasure now to present Mahawa to you, Mahawa Komala. She is currently the head of the environmental programs at the Peacebuilding and nonprofit organization called Everyday Gandhis. I think quite a nice name. I had to smile when I read it first. Mahawa focuses on women's leadership, on sustainable agriculture. She works on climate change awareness and on community forest protection. And with this, we agreed that I share her slides. So let me just do that really quickly. Let me know if you can see my slides now, Mahawa.
Yes, I can. Thank you very much. I'm Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mahawa Komala. I'm from Liberia. I work with Everyday Gandhis. It's called Everyday Peace, meaning peace is possible every day. So we are into environmental protection, community cohesion, and climate change mitigation. So in my today's presentation, I will share the different roles of stakeholders in contributing to environmental peace building through the joint protection of Liberia's forest. I will also highlight the current status of our forest, and I'll also talk about the role of rural communities in contributing to forest conservation, which eventually lead to environmental peace building. And lastly, I will share the different projects Everyday Gandhis run in northern Liberia. So the next slide, please. Okay, so looking at Liberia, as we all know, when it comes to peace, it comes to environment, it comes to forest, Liberia's name always comes up because the country has a lot of forest land, and it is believed that Liberia's covered two-thirds of its country land area. In 2024, according to the Global Forest Watch, Liberia lost about 160 acres of its natural forest due to industrial logging. We have plantation agriculture. We also have charcoal production and shifting cultivation. These are activities that are taking place currently in northern Liberia that is leading to forest degradation. And Liberia forest also own significant threats from concession companies, and it's actually causing climate change and all that. Next slide, please. So as far as environmental peace building is concerned, and looking back at our history of conflicts, which was caused by natural resource extraction, especially forest resource, And there's so many efforts that have been made by the government of Liberia to ensure that our forest is protected and also make sure that we have continual peace, the peace that we currently enjoy today. So through the EPA, they have put together a 5-year environmental protection plan, which was launched in January of last year to promote peace and strengthen environmental governance in Liberia. There's also the National Adaptation Plan, which work in line with the environmental peacebuilding process. And with support from the United Nations, there was a project launched in 2020 called Peacebuilding Reconciliation and Social Cohesion Project to ensure that we have we have continual programs ongoing in rural communities to ensure that there's conservation happening and the forest is protected. And also make sure that the fragile peace that we have in Liberia will continue on the peace building path. And the goal of these different projects is to foster community engagement. And the EPA also want to make sure that they have established 15 offices in the different political counties. But these offices, there will be monitoring, there will be governance to ensure that rural community forest is protected. It also promotes environmental compliance. It will strengthen enforcement, and also there will be more of awareness and education on global environmental issues. Next, please. Okay, this is the most important part because we work directly with the community. And when it comes to conservation efforts, community have to be heavily involved. And the importance of community-led conservation is that rural communities depend highly on forest land. All of their activities are done within the forest. So to ensure their adequate participation will help in the sustainable management of Liberia's forest. And also the Constitution of Liberia, the 1986 Constitution of Liberia maintains that all citizens protect and manage our natural resources, which also includes the forest. So a joint effort from the community, the government, and international partners, there will be a huge difference in promoting environmental peace building in Liberia. Next, please. And as I mentioned earlier, the community are very important when it comes to peace building efforts. So they promote sustainable peace through the management of shared forest cover. In Liberia, most parts, you realize that we have forest serving as boundaries between different communities. So with the joint effort of this community coming together, making sure that forest land are protected and properly managed, there will be a reduction in conflict and there will be sustainable peace. And peace building efforts is still ongoing because we are at the final stage of the entire peace process of Liberia. We are trying to ensure that conflict does not reoccur, and we are also trying to prioritize community participation. So community are also required to understand the difference between the different land. Because we have community land, we have customary land, and we have national forest land. With this knowledge and idea, there will be a reduction in conflict. People will understand which land is supposed to be used for what purpose. And when it comes to the community, they are very instrumental in making sure that there are rules and regulations governing their forest. There are also laws set by the local governing people. So which I will talk about in my next slide, the formal actor and the informal actors when it comes to forest conservation and peace. Next, please. Now, looking at the formal governing actor, we have the EPA, the Forestry Development Authority. They work in collaboration with the local governing actors. We have the commissioner, the superintendent, and the county land authority. So what they do is that they collaborate with this community to promote sustainable forest management because the community will also need their support. And then the FDA serve as liaison between even though they represent the government, but they also serve as liaison between the people and international partners to make sure that all projects that concern the community when it comes to peace and forest protection is implemented properly. The EPA also organizes programs that are vital to Liberia's forest land. So they are playing very key role when it comes to forest conservation and peace building in Liberia. Next, please. And we also look at the informal governing actor that we talk about the town chief, the women leaders, the youth. And these people, they are key actors when it comes to forest protection. They help in identifying family land because they are land that have been used from family in the past years. But in order to reduce conflict now, they have to demarcate this different land and show to family members that this land was owned by your family years ago, and this land was owned by your family years ago. So it's very important to differentiate and identify different family land. And in the customary land that the community mostly depend on has to be evenly distributed. Distributed in the sense that everyone should be able to have access to this land because agricultural farming is a huge part of our it's a huge part of our efforts in promoting forest conservation. So these people conduct regular land mediation with local stakeholders. Land mediation is an issue. We always have conflicts when it comes to land ownership, access to land. So they play a key role in making sure that all parties involved, all stakeholders involved, understand the importance of this land, also act upon them. So these leaders, they work along with the government, like the town chief, the land authority, to survey this land that have been identified in order to reduce disputes among the people. In that effort to ensure that this happen, Funjama district, we have other surrounding districts, we have Zozo districts, we have Kolahon, we have Foya. So Funjama has been demarcated because one project is situated within Funjama district. The district name has been demarcated from all other districts in Lofa County. Okay, now we'll go down to everyday Ghanaians role. We said peace is possible every day. How do we make sure that we enjoy the over 10 years of peace that Rowan is enjoying right now? We empower local communities. We empower farmers. How do we do that? We do that through permaculture initiatives. We train them on how to farm sustainably and how to make a maximum use of land because we have realized that over the years, shifting cultivation is one of the main causes of deforestation in in Lofa County. So we do that through permaculture initiative. We also do lowland farming. With this method, the peace building aspect coming because we work with group of communities together. We join you together. We have a site located. You form as group. That will also serve as a means to talk about the issues surrounding environmental protection. Next, please. Traditional culture. Lofa County is a traditional county. The only way you can relate with the people when it comes to peace, you have to involve culture. It will do that mostly through cultural activities, which involve training of local children about their culture and how to live by it. Because it has come to our notice that over the year, local leaders, traditional people, they had so many knowledge when it comes to forest conservation. They had their own rules and regulations inside to make sure that forests are protected. There's also something that they call it the main bush. This area is set aside for people not to farm, not to hunt. This is one of the main methods that they use to ensure that we have reserve in these areas. Due to that effort, there are a lot of forest reserves for traditional purposes, all within Lofa County. We also do it through reforestation. We plant trees in degraded forest area with joint effort from the communities. We go into the communities, we have awareness, we have discussions, we have conversations. We ask them to dedicate a place where you can plant more trees to ensure that they will have enough forest for the next generation. So with their partnership, they are very cooperative. We work together. We have planted over 1,000 of trees in the past 5 years through our reforestation initiative. Next, please. And when it comes to reconciliation and cooperation, we talk about environmental peace. We want to ensure that there is continuous peace in Liberia. We engage the communities, we have discussions, we have mediation, we ensure that everyone is involved because we know that all parties have important roles to play when it comes to peace building through reconciliation and equal participation, which includes traditional leaders, traditional elders, men, women, youth, and all. Next, please. So key takeaways. We always say the rural community are key actors when it comes to peace and natural resource management in Liberia. You cannot achieve conservation without their participation. They have key roles to play, and we must consider them. Sustainable forest conservation is attainable with the inclusion and implementation of laws that set aside by the community. In as much as our leaders will have policies to ensure that these forests are protected, they also need to consider the local laws set by rural communities. they have their township, they have their leaders, they are set rules, which helped in the past. And we are certain that with these local laws implemented on a regular basis, there will be huge change. And then the forest law of Liberia gave communities equal right and access to forest land. That's the one thing we have to take note of. With their access, it also means that they have an important role to play in protecting our forest cover. And everyday Ghanaians in particular, we've been here since 2004, since the Civil War ended in Liberia. We have been working with communities through reconciliation, peace after post-conflict Liberia to make sure that everyone is rehabilitated because there were so many things that happened during the Civil War. And that is, all these people have one thing in common, the forest, the environment. So in order to ensure that they have a part of play, you have to work with something that brings them together. The environment brings them together. So we work with them in that regard. So, yeah, next please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mahawa. That was really interesting as it was like a very practical side of things. I think in contrast to the more analytical or academic ones, the first two we've seen, we now turn to another PhD project by Tom. Tom Kavanagh is a PhD researcher at the University of New South Wales. For those of you who do not know where that is, I believe that's in Australia. I guess that's where he is right now. He focuses on the political economy and geography of forest finance, but he also works on forest governance and mostly in Cambodia. He is the co-chair of the Forest Interest Group at NPAX, the association that Carl just introduced early on. So with this, Tom, I hand over to you as our last presentation, and then we will get right into the discussion.
Right. Thank you, Jan-Peter. Can I just confirm you can see my slides? Yep. Great. Okay. Good afternoon, or for any other Australians joining, very early morning. I am indeed in Australia, based in Sydney. Thank you to all the previous presentations for their excellent insights so far. I hope I can live up to the high bar that's been set so far. I'd also like to apologise. I'm going to need to rely on some notes given the time here, and I want to remain coherent. So as I've been introduced, my name's Tom Kavanagh, and I'm a PhD researcher here at the University of New South Wales. I'm also the co-chair of the Forest Interest Group at the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. So today, I want to briefly share some initial insights from my research on forest finance in Cambodia. This is a small part of my larger PhD project, which examines how forest finance attempts to increase the value of standing forests, and specifically how this value is produced, realised, and distributed. So, hang on, no, there we are. So while I focus on a range of forest finance streams targeting Cambodia, REDD+ is arguably the most significant. Cambodia is among the largest issuers of carbon credits worldwide, forestry-based carbon credits worldwide, and has made REDD+ central to its long-term strategy for carbon neutrality and nationally determined contributions. As such, this occupies a large part of my work. Today, I will be sharing insights from around 36 interviews I conducted through a Khmer translator with communities living within the boundaries of several REDD+ projects in Cambodia. So this speaks to the aforementioned production and distribution of value side of the project, and highlights an emerging theme of the importance of centering political economy in conservation. While some of the findings reflect project dynamics, my aim is not project evaluation, rather to build a clearer picture of a broader political economy and governance architecture within which projects are one component. The findings from community interviews in these projects are illustrative of wider dynamics in Cambodia's forest governance, rather than an assessment of any single initiative. So before I go any further, I'll quickly situate where I'm coming from in terms of environmental peace building. Like Aliche, I conceptualize peace in environmental peace building in the positive sense. That is not just the absence of violence, i.e. negative peace, but the presence of justice, equity, resource access, and the transformation of structural inequalities. And these are many of the factors that were also identified by Rowan in her own work. Rowan and Jan-Peter, I should say. This broad definition allows us to understand a much wider range of activities under the banner of environmental peace building, and opens up opportunities to engage with more diverse theoretical traditions in understanding these activities, such as political economy. Importantly, it allows us to importantly, this opens the possibility for us to understand livelihoods as valid objects of analysis within an environmental peacebuilding framework. This, of course, is not a unique position. Livelihoods sit at the heart of a range of different environmental peacebuilding studies and activities. In the forest conservation space in particular, livelihood activities often aim to redirect community livelihood activity away from resource-intensive or environmentally destructive practices towards what so-called alternative livelihoods. The logic being that by redirecting economic activity away from forest use, conservation and development goals can be met. Additionally, development co-benefits such as infrastructure, scholarships, and savings groups are all intended to increase community buy-in to conservation projects. Through my discussions with community members, what became clear, however, is that livelihoods as they are conceived in project documents and REDD+ strategies often overlook critical aspects of the local political economy, creating fundamental contradictions inhibiting the possibility of achieving any sort of positive peace. With my remaining time, I want to very quickly look at 4 key areas where this takes place: institutions, labour, access, and compensation. So beginning with institutions, a narrative arc that I followed across a couple of these projects was the displacement of local community forests in favour of REDD+ initiatives. Over the course of around 5 years, funding for community forests dried up, consolidating power within state and non-state structures, which were far less participatory than the community forests. Where the community forests appeared to have a high degree of community buy-in and participation, including the provision of jobs that participants felt paid them well, the attitudes towards REDD+ was that it was being imposed on them from the outside, and with some even suggesting that they were being bought off through livelihood activities and other forms of compensation. I ended many of my conversations with a broad vision for the future question, to which several participants responded, "I just want our community forest back." A second theme which emerged was that of labour. The focus on alternative livelihoods obscures the impacts that REDD+ has on local labour dynamics. So this was visible on 2 fronts. First, the alternative livelihoods offered through the creation of local ecotourism was highly precarious, with wages paid on a per-tourist basis. Participants described difficulties in maintaining tourist markets when faced with poorly maintained roads, the Thai-Cambodian border conflict and other factors such as COVID-19, or the international perception of crime linked to scam centres emerging across the country. Second, others discussed how people displaced or migrating away from REDD+ sites led to local labour shortages during harvest season, thereby undermining local economies. Third, the impacts on REDD+ on access are very well documented, and my discussions reinforce these findings. Prior to REDD+ expansion, participants described thriving livelihood practices deeply intertwined with the forest. Harvesting wild fruits, vines, tapping resin for sale to middlemen, and selective timber cutting for housing from community-held land, all within customary limits that sustained both their needs and forest regeneration. The enclosure of REDD+ conservation zones disrupted this balance. Many participants now express palpable fear entering the forest, describing aggressive patrols that confiscate tools, including basic farming tools, and reports of arrest for activities that they view as traditional. Instead, communities are enrolled in community savings groups and other financial schemes which are intended to offset the loss of forest income and reduce economic dependence on forests. But they fall short in meeting the needs of the community. Many of those involved in the schemes highlighted limited available funding within the community funds, conflicts over repayments, and the need to continue to use high interest microfinance to meet basic household expenses. This brings me to my final dimension I want to touch on, which is compensation. So REDD+ foregrounds community development as one of the key co-benefits for communities living within REDD+ boundaries. Solar panels, scholarships, roads, schools. But my interviews reveal this compensation model fundamentally misreads the political economy of conservation. Participants describe previous projects which built actual productive capacity. Returning to the example of the community forest, I spoke to a former employee of the of the nursery at that forest, who described at the peak of the community forest activities providing thousands of seedlings across various provinces within the country. These types of activities were economic infrastructures which supported community self-governance, and they're near impossible to compensate for. In that same community where the nursery had previously operated, community members were offered seedlings as an effort to increase community buy-in to the very project which had led to the closure of their nursery. This speaks to a deeper flaw in the livelihoods approach. It's impossible to compensate for enclosures which sever people from their economic base, cultural practices, and governing authority through sporadic infrastructure improvements and small-scale benefit distribution. This was captured quite nicely by one of my participants reflecting on the benefits they had received from Red Plus, who stated, "We only got solar lights, they took our land." This drives home that true environmental peace building demands attention to positive, justice-oriented peace, not development that seeks to legitimize dispossession. To conclude, I want to re-stress the importance of bringing a political economy lens into our conservation and environmental peace building work. Conventional livelihoods approaches present a technical, neutral problem where forest income can be easily substituted with alternatives. It positions communities as economic actors who can be bought off with infrastructure improvements, precarious employment, and savings groups. A political economy lens forces us to consider the impacts of these projects on local institutions, labour dynamics, access, and distribution, among many other dimensions that I'm still pulling out of a lot of data. It is only by foregrounding these dimensions that conservation and environmental peace building and environmental peace building more broadly can hope to contribute to a positive peace. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to discussing further in the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Tom. I think we have a lot of input now based on those 4 presentations. I don't claim to have a full summary of the 4 presentations now, but at least what ended up on on my end is that conservation is not automatically local community friendly. I think that's not a very new conclusion, but something that came out in many presentations. I would say all. And of course, environmental peace building is not something that's achieved easily, that has very many obstacles. And here I want to ask at least this one or maybe 2 questions to the presenters before we then pick up on the questions in the chat. And the question is, based on your experience,